Hey everybody, this is Zach Rohde. I'm doing a live by myself this time. My good friend David is not with me. And today, what I really want to focus on is a man's devoted leadership. And if anyone's been following my Facebook, I certainly have been triggering people a lot more than usual, which I don't mind. It's fine if people get triggered. It's just interesting how um, people aren't able to deal with their triggers in a healthy way so much of the time. People are so interested in just, being abusive, or just stating disagreements and not trying to understand, not asking for clarification. I just find that so interesting. Hey, Maria. And so I wanted to elaborate more on what I'm getting at when I talk about a man's journey with leading and devoted leadership. I think this is really important because I think most men, I'm going to say the vast majority of men that get into spirituality and like self-help stuff, um, are really kind of on the wrong journey. And I'm not saying that they're not doing anything good. They are, and I've done that as well, and I've certainly gained beneficial things out of it. But what I am saying is that there is a much more efficient, better way of a man taking his journey, where he can learn so much more, and benefit so many more people if he just gets off his ass and stops focusing so much on healing and starts focusing on leading. Yeah, Gene, it might be all men. um, and so I'm going to use myself as an example, right? Because I have a lot of experience doing many different things in self-help, on my journey. And the way I first started was learning to meet women, and get good with women and dating women, and having relationships with women, though mostly non-exclusive for most of my life. And what I did, I had to go through a process of getting rejected literally thousands of times, right? I was learning to meet women by going out on the street. I'm not saying every man has to do this. There's many different ways of learning to become a leader, but this was how I got into it, right? So going out on the street, getting rejected over and over again, learning how to be genuine, learning how to be authentic, learning how to have conversations with women, learning how to lead women, most importantly, right? Like going from I'm just meeting you and I'm a stranger on the street. How do I lead a woman from that to realizing that I'm not a crazy person, that I'm someone that she wants to give my or her number to, right? So leading her to give me her number, leading her to um, actually have a date with her, like go on a date with me, go on a few dates, eventually we'll sleep together, get intimate, may start a relationship with her, may lead to something, leading the relationship forward, for some women, eventually becoming exclusive with them and then leading in that direction. So that's all leadership, right? And during that part of my journey, I was also working on a coaching business for men, learning how to do the same thing, learning how to meet and date women by being authentic and genuine. And during that process, I grew so much. Like it was ridiculous, the process, not just of like growing as a man, not just like developing my masculine, but also really developing my feminine, right? Like learning how to just accept failure, and move like, and triggers would come up all the time, and I'd be really sad about certain things that happen, and depressed, and I would have to move into that and heal that and strengthen myself so that I could become a better leader. So through that process, I ended up healing so much of myself by not focusing on healing at all. That was not my focus. My focus was leading my life, and leading my business and leading women. That was what it was. And I wasn't even a devoted man back then, right? I was much more selfish. I was much more focused, just on myself and my needs. I liked, it was fun to give to people, and give to women, but it was much more just about me. And then I went, so that lasted several years. And then I moved to Africa to teach, and I really started moving inward in a big way. And it started by breaking up with a girlfriend I was exclusive with, and I had to because it was just unhealthy. And I didn't know, I got really good at dating women and leading to date women, but I just was not a good leader in relationships. I didn't know what I was doing. I was very quick to like feel criticized and blamed, and not take on the proper devoted masculine role in relationships. I wasn't taught. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. I would get triggered by things, by my woman getting mad at me, and I wouldn't know what to do, right? And because nobody taught me these things. No, there was no Zach around that I could find that was teaching me how to properly lead in a relationship, how to be a devoted man. I'm sure those people, those men or women existed somewhere, but I didn't know where they were. And so, I'd just be a child. I would, be immature and try my best to engage in that relationship. But eventually it didn't work out. I didn't know what to do. And I blamed her mostly. I thought it was mostly her fault at the time. Now reflecting back, no, that was like, I take responsibility for that. She had her own stuff too, of course, but there was so much I could have done and just didn't know how to do. And I could have healed so much in that relationship because we really triggered each other. There's so much healing I could have done by being the leader in the relationship, but instead, I didn't, and I moved to Africa. And then, I that was the first time I really moved inward and just processed and cried and cried and cried over this relationship. Once I finally like learned to get in touch with my feelings and heal in that way. And that set me on a several year journey. I don't know, 5, 6, no, I was probably like 8, something like that. I lost track. Many, many years, right? Like close to a decade, where I just really started moving inward and like letting go of control, learning to like accept everything, letting everything come to the surface and crying and learning to be vulnerable, express my feelings. Like, if people are interested in why I know so much about women being like how women need to be vulnerable and teaching that. I mean, yes, I know how it feels when women do it to me, right? And how it like compels me to devote and makes me really connected to them. But the other thing is, I went on this journey really far as a man, so which is not really the journey I should have been taking, but it was really interesting. I did really learn a lot, and I'm glad I took it because it got me where I am today. But there is a much better way I could have done it instead that would have been much more beneficial for me and for others. So I went through that journey. I did like 10, or no, sorry, like 6 10-day meditation retreats, Vipassana retreats, and like spent months of my life meditating and processing and crying. And what did it get me? I just became more of a woman. That was really all that happened, is I just became more of a woman, just more accepting, but not in a good way, like not in a integrative way where I really integrated my feminine, which would have really helped my relationship that I'm now in, my marriage. Instead, it was dysfunctional. I wasn't leading anything. I wasn't working on any business. I wasn't doing any leadership whatsoever. I was doing a bit with my wife, but not what I should have been doing. And before I met my wife for a long time, I was just like, I just had no direction. I wasn't doing much. I was just crying and just like crying every day and healing stuff. And it's great. I healed a lot of wounds that way, but I could have done so much more with that like lost decade, so much more. So that's where I was in my relationship for the first few years, kind of like directionless and like super authentic and super confident in myself and all that kind of stuff, and just like being able to accept everything and love everything for the most part. But I wasn't being a man. I was not being a devoted man at all. And then, when that changed was like late last year, and I'm not going to get into the whole story, but I had my son was born, and I, just really opened up in a big way. I opened up my feminine in a big way where I just felt what it feels like to be unbelievably devoted to somebody that's not me and isn't my needs. But it did it in a way where it's like it was through my masculine, right? Like it was like, holy shit, I need to protect this child. I need to like make sure that nothing bad ever happens to him and like lead, my wife in a way that like my child can thrive, and like just everything really opened up for me. And like a lot of it was fear based because I'm like, I cannot have anything happen to this child. But like for the first time, I felt, okay, this is what it feels like to be. I didn't have the words for it, but this is what it's like to be a devoted man, right? That I've never felt anything like this before. Like, wow, I don't feel selfish at all. It's just like I want to give myself to somebody else and like devote myself, devote my leadership to someone that isn't me. And the last year, it's been like about well, it's been a bit over a year since my son was born. Um, but in that last year is like I've healed more than I have in the last decade. All that bullshit, like becoming a woman and healing and meditating and all that stuff. It's like I have been forced to, because of my child and then because of my devotion for my wife, there's just been so many things where I need to like weak points that I found in myself, right? Like fears and triggers. And it's like my motivation is I need to be the best man I can for my woman and like for my child while he was alive, and but my woman, and just do everything I can to be the best leader that I can for them, right? And then as I was trying to be the best leader, there's just like, oh man, there's all these crappy things about me that are not what they need to be the best devoted leader, to give all that I can give to them in every way possible. Like, there's all this fear that I need to push through where I'm just being uh I'm not being a man in the way that I need to be. And so by pushing through all of that, and then things that came up where like my wife didn't respond to me in the way that I wanted and didn't respect me in the way that I needed and all that kind of stuff, and that really hurt. And then I had to process that, and I've had a bunch of cries since then as well. um Learning to get past that, brief periods where it's like, hey, I'm going to go off by myself and cry because I feel upset and these wounds are coming up. But then I put my pants back on and I get back to leading again. And this process of a man leading, devoted leadership, the best possible job that he can do as a devoted leader, that is what is going to heal him in every way that he needs to heal. And in the process of also healing without trying to heal, he's also going to be, the man that he needs to be for himself and for his woman and for everybody, for humanity, right? Like, the things that I'm doing now, it's also for the world. It's for my business. It's for my clients. Um, it's for my family. It's for everybody. And I'm healing in the process, but my goal is not to heal. I just don't give a crap about that. I will heal if I need to heal so I can become a better devoted leader and be able to give more of my gifts. That's all, right? My focus is not on healing. I don't care about that. It does not matter. If there is something that needs to be healed, because it's stopping me from giving my best gifts in the best way I possibly can, then I will go off and heal it. I will go off and have a nice cry, whatever I have to do. I'm fine with that. But that's not the purpose. The purpose is so I can become a better leader. And that's what men need to do. Like just like ah this is like I think mm, men are really getting caught up in this whole like, let's just spend decades or years or whatever healing. And maybe there is a period of time where that is the most important thing to do, right? They just can't possibly lead until they heal some big trauma, and that's fine. There's no judgment there if that's what you need to do. But I don't think that's where most men are. I think most men are in a place where it's like, I feel really safe healing. This is nice. I got my candles, I got my meditation, I got my whatever spiritual practices that I'm doing. I got my coaches. This is safe. I'm just moving inward because, the healing in that way, it's like it's hard, like emotionally it's hard and difficult, and there's lots to process, but it's not really that scary, is it? Like the times where I've been the most scared in my life, that was when I was first like meeting women, going out every day and dating and pushing myself to be more of a man, and then pushing myself to be more of a man in my businesses and with my wife and in all the different ways that I've been leading. That's what's scary. And I think a lot of men get trapped in this like safer healing thing where they're not actually being men. They're just being women and healing and letting go of control and all that stuff. But the real fear that you need to be pushing yourself through is through your leadership. That's where the big fears are. That's where your big growth is, and that's where you're going to be able to offer your best gifts to everybody else, especially your woman. Like, especially, like, don't even bother trying to give gifts to your woman if it's not through your leadership. That's what she needs from you so that she can easily be in her feminine and give the gifts that you need, right? They're just her feminine energy, which is, regenerating and like feels so good for a man to be around. Let me see. I haven't looked through the comments at all. Just gonna see if there's anything I need to answer. Just lots of compliments and stuff. That's nice. Thanks, guys. Um, yeah. So just like, men, seriously, if what I am describing is kind of where you're at right now, and you're really not in a place where you are taking charge with devoted leadership, like honestly, I really suggest taking a one-on-one call with me. I've been through all of this. I've been through the healing part, I've been through the leading part, I've been through everything. And like I can take you on that journey. And also, I really recommend joining my private group. It's both for men and women to take their own separate journeys and interact with each other in very different ways. And through that process, both man and woman can heal. And that group is $66 US dollars a month. It's crazy cheap. And you will learn so much about how to be a man and how to be a woman. Um, and use your programming in the way it was meant to be used, right? Like a man's masculine with his integrated feminine, masculine like devoted leadership, and then a woman's like feminine integrated masculine, which is letting go of control, just going with the flow of the universe, and just expressing from her heart and being vulnerable. It's just very different paths, and there's just so much potential growth if you just really laser focus in on this path, your gender specific path, and just go for it. And like any fear that comes up, fuck it, I'm doing it anyway. For a woman, no, I don't care. I'm just going to be vulnerable. I don't care what anyone else thinks. For a man, like, I don't care. I'm just going to lead. I'm just going to speak my truth. I'm just doing it. I'm gonna be devoted. I'm just gonna do the best that I can possibly do, and hopefully people will follow me. And if they don't, then it will be really embarrassing, and I'll get rejected, and I'll feel bad. Maybe I'll have a cry, and then I'll get right back to it. Right? I've done all that. It sucks. It sucks, but it's also amazing. It's terrifying, but it's also so unbelievably joyful if you just keep with it and you have the tools to process crappy stuff that comes up. If you know how to cry, you know how to move in and cry and move past that, amazing. That's a really important tool to have. But the other tool is putting your big boy pants back on and leading again, no matter what comes up, and not giving up, and really having an inner vision that you're focused on manifesting into the world, right? And I have that inner vision in my relationship, and then I have that inner vision in like my business and how I interact with people. It's like, I want people to do this same work. I want people to see the truth that I am providing, much of it for free, and then a lot of it through my calls and my group. Um, because if you do the work and you heal in this way, you take the journey in this way, women trying to heal and men, healing by accident through leadership, then you will completely transform yourself so quickly. If you're willing to push through those fears, the transformation will be ridiculously fast, like ridiculously quick. And you won't just change yourself. You will transform your relationship, probably, if you have one. Or some partners do not want to take their own journey and reflect you, and then you'll have to leave them and find someone more mature and who wants to take their own journey. And you influence and change everybody else you interact with, right? Like, just think how much one person, if you really do this work, can change like thousands and thousands of lives. But you're not going to change many lives and not change yourself that much in a useful way if you're not taking your gender specific journey. Or you could, like, that's not true. You could actually positively influence a lot of people, but I really don't believe it's going to be doing it in the optimal way. There's just so much more potential if you do it in the way that you're programmed to do, your base programming. Um, okay, Kristen says, how do you define vulnerability for women? I'll scroll up. I might have missed a few messages. Okay, so vulnerability for women. This is something that I talk about so much in my private group, which I really recommend, because you just, like, it just me speaking about it on my page and in my video here just doesn't do it justice. But by vulnerability, what I'm talking about is, you feel something, right? Like, I probably triggered the shit out of pretty much everybody that's followed my page at least some point, some of my posts. And so you feel something, you feel a trigger, you maybe feel anger at first, right? And then, vulnerability at first, if you feel angry, it'd be like, you just say, I feel really angry right now. A woman is showing a man or showing people what is in her heart. Um, and so that's vulnerability, right? You're exposed, you feel exposed. And women, as well as men, are usually really busy guarding that part of themselves, right? Hiding that part, pretending that they're stronger than they really are, and like, oh, nothing affects me, which of course is nonsense, right? We're humans, we get affected all the time by things. And so it's that, and then, what is underneath that anger, right? It's like, what actually happened in that trigger? Did you feel hurt? Did you get hurt? Did you feel disrespected? You feel unappreciated? Maybe you felt like shame, or like like some kind of shame, like you're not lovable, you're not good enough, all those kind of things. And you're just expressing that. You're just being open. Instead of hiding it from yourself and hiding it from the world, you just open yourself, and it's like, here I am. I'm Kristen. This is me. And I'm vulnerable, and I'm feeling sad right now. I'm feeling whatever. And you just own it. It's like, you just take ownership of those feelings, and and through that process, a woman's actually going to heal so much, right? Like, just in our group, there has been so much healing for women that's taken place, because they've just opened themselves to themselves, and recognized those feelings, and then expressed them in words, gotten it out on the screen, and said how they felt, and it just brought up so much for them. So many wounds are opening, and then they're able to, feel into them, and be like, and kind of see them for the first time, and accept these parts of them that have been neglected and unloved and denied their whole lives, that they've just pushed away. And now it's coming to the surface, and they're just learning to accept it and love it. And the men in the group, there's only three, two of them are coaches, and one of them is me, but we're holding space for that, right? And we're leading, and we're connecting to women's hearts because they're being vulnerable, and like allowing them to feel completely safe, and doing everything that we can. right? And just being a witness to this vulnerability, to this healing process. And it's not just healing, of course, right? The vulnerability, it's healing. And you're not actually trying to get an outcome, you're just trying to express. But in the process of not trying to get an outcome and just being vulnerable, you end up healing, and you end a lot of the time anyway, and you become more of your feminine radiant self, right? And you become more confident in that feminine radiant self. And that will, not that this is the purpose of it, because that you're not trying to get an outcome, but what will happen is men will become really pulled in, and good men, not narcissists and children men, little boys, but like real men, devoted men, leaders, will be pulled into that vulnerability and will care about that and want to devote themselves and devote their leadership to your heart, to how you feel. And that process, right, of a man being a devoted leader and a woman being a vulnerable, like she's vulnerable and letting go of control, but is also going to not let a man take advantage of that, right? She has her own value. That process in a relationship, romantically or otherwise, is how both partners can heal each other, right? By a man learning to just accept and love his woman and everything that comes up and lead her towards healing and reflecting that healing, and pushing through any fears and traumas to become a better devoted leader for her. And the woman is actually doing the processing by being vulnerable and healing and becoming more confident in that too. And so when both a woman and a man go through that process in a relationship, they end up healing themselves and becoming whole people. But the end product of a man and a woman looks entirely different, right? So there's none of this like balance where like men and women look the same by balancing their energies. No, a man and a woman, when they have fully like really healed and worked on their primary programming, a feminine woman and a masculine man, they will be whole, but they will look completely different, like completely different. And that's beautiful. That's a really cool, beautiful thing that we have such different gifts based on our gender, and can show that through the ways that we express in a very different way. I just think that's the coolest thing, and I think that just adds so much value to the opposite gender to have a man being surrounded by really feminine women that are whole, and women being around really masculine men that are whole, and it's just so complementary. See if there's anything else. I don't think there's much else. I'm sorry if I missed anything. It's just like 50 replies or something. I'm just seeing if there's anything to reply to. But yeah, so I wanted to make this about 30 minutes long. We're at 28 minutes. So that's really good to end this, I think. Thank you guys for tuning in. Really recommend checking out my group and just PMing, like sending me a private message if you are interested, because the stuff that I talk about publicly, it's really nothing compared to how much we are growing in our group. It's so fast, it's so real world and applicable, both for men and for women on their separate journeys. And I want everybody to be able to be on that journey for such a cheap price. It costs almost nothing, and just you can just apply this stuff. You can apply it today, right? Start applying it today, every single day, and you'll just grow so fast. And in a very supportive environment, both on my public wall and in my group, right? Just try to make it the most supportive environment possible for people that actually want to apply this stuff and just grow and express in a different way, in the way that they, are basically their base programming is meant for. So thank you guys for tuning in. We're basically right at 30 minutes. Hope you guys got a lot out of this video, and hope you tune in for the next one.